Hi, Akanksha. Akanksha, are you able to hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
yeah,
My
I
internet
can.
does weird things to me when I'm live.
Okay. How are you doing, Akanksha?
Not too bad, not too bad. Kind of cold. It just randomly got very cold. But other than that, we're doing well.
Okay, so we are really excited to see you, Akanksha, here for today's session. So before you, we had Devanshi and Amanda from Microsoft, and you are the second speaker for today's conference. So we are really pumped up, and as you can see, there are so many participants waiting for your session. So I would request you to give a quick intro about yourself, like what you're doing and what the session is going to be about today.
Cool. Yeah, my name's Akanksha Malik, and I am a data scientist and a Microsoft AI MVP here in Melbourne, Australia. I work with Telstra Purple out here. If anyone knows Telstra, I don't think you do. Yeah, and my session's around Azure Synapse and the whole world of enterprise data solutions and machine learning stuff.
Awesome. So Akanshi, you can share your screen and I'll
Yeah,
put it on the stream. And also just reminding you, after the session, we can have a short Q&A session where we'll be showing the questions coming from the comment box and you can answer them.
perfect.
Awesome.
And let me move this out of the way once it shares.
Let me know if you have already shared the screen.
Chrome has started to not respond at the share screen request. So give me 2 seconds. All my Chromes are down right now.
Oh,
Jesus, I want to cancel. Sorry. Well, we're gonna have to wait here for another minute. It's just gonna stick.
no, not a problem.
Or I can try. Great. Of course, this is going to happen today, as if this would have worked on its own. What I might try and do is rejoin.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, let me try and do that because this has completely frozen. Okay.
I think, guys, Akansha will be joining again. So there's some issue with her internet. Okay. Yeah, Akansha. Yeah, I can
And
see your screen. Yes, I can see your screen. I'm putting it on the stream.
see a screen. Well, it's moved out amazing. Wow. Okay, it's just shut down. I had everything ready to go. So if this is a little bit slower, I'm sorry.
Not a problem.
Let's get started without any more delays.
This happens. Okay.
Let's go into share mode. Okay, cool. Can you see the screen still? I think it's the wrong screen.
Yes,
Amazing.
yes. It's like,
why is this doing this to me today? Okay, is this better? Can people see me? Okay, great. Welcome everyone. Sorry about those technical delays, but also I've gotten very used to having these technical delays at this stage in the global virtual world that we're living in. So yeah, as I've already said, my name is Akanksha, and today we're going to discuss how to do everything in Synapse from AI all the way out to BI in one place. So I like to go really deep into my talks by talking a bit about me first. It kind of gets everyone onto the same playing field and just eases everyone into the whole thing altogether. So I studied financial maths and actuarial science. I am from India originally, but I've spent most of my life in Ireland, and which probably explains the accent a little bit. So if I do end up talking too fast, I do have the chat going on the side. Just say it in there. I will try and slow down. It doesn't always happen, but I will make sure to try and keep an eye out on that. So yeah, I did financial maths and actuarial science, which meant I did a lot of maths and I did a lot of statistics and a tiny little bit of programming. And I moved to Melbourne, Australia for some reason, got a job here, and I'm now working as a data scientist. So when I started, it was a lot of what is data science? How do I learn all these cool buzzwords that they have in data science? This is going to be fun. So yeah, everything I have started picking up and started learning, I tend to just do talks around it because it's a great way for me to actually understand what I'm learning. So yeah, Azure Synapse was kind of something like that as well, where I saw this really cool tech and I was like, yes, I want to try this. And if I say I'll do a talk on it, I'm 100% going to try it. So on today's agenda, I essentially just want to be able to demo the AI and BI capabilities of Synapse. Just be aware as we go through this, Synapse is meant as an enterprise data solution. It's not necessarily meant as something that you just want to do your pet project on. It is meant for the really, really big data capabilities across the world, really large data sets, really high computing power that you need, and thus can be a little bit expensive if you're just trying to mess around with it. But what my aim here for you to get through today is how you can actually use your current skills and actually apply those to an enterprise solution straight away. So with that, let's just have a quick look at AI in the market. It's everywhere. Everybody wants to do it. Everybody wants to know it. Everyone wants it like in places that they're like, yes, okay, we're a business and we really want to see AI. They don't know what it means, but they know that they want it. And that's great, but there are some challenges with adoption. If you look across the market at the moment, there's a lot of demand for data and data scientists. The supply just isn't covering it. And that's kind of because of the fact that there's a talent gap. Not everyone has the skill sets to be able to do this. But also, if you do have the skill sets, there's also language barriers. Kind of the first one you'll think of is usually Python or R. And that's already putting a split in. Don't get me wrong, there's people who can do both, but it's hard to be able to do all of the different languages that are available to you in front of you for data science work. The process of actually getting an environment set up and managing the infrastructure involved with doing big data calculations, God, it's massive. I've had a project before, like I was on it for about 2 months. It took me 3 weeks to actually get set up on it with all the permissions required and all the access issues. And that's just 3 weeks away from a project that didn't need to be taken away, where I could have been working on developing algorithms for it. Okay, cool. And technology. The other end of it is, don't get me wrong, every single day there is new tech coming out. I think at this rate, we're doubling our knowledge level across the world at like every 70 days or something like that is what I heard recently. It's crazy. There's so much information coming up, but that needs to be secure and we need to be able to scale it, and also needs to be flexible. So if you think about the data science thing I said earlier about Python versus R, if you have someone who's come in and set up this whole amazing platform for you in Python, but then they have to leave. They've set up everything for you, including all the infrastructure, and the only other person you have in the business is someone who knows R. How do you change from that? How do you manage that lack of flexibility and security at an enterprise level? God, it's so important. People want to know that their data is safe wherever it's sitting. So with all those things in mind, like if you think about the challenges with the adoption, 80% of all the big businesses that want to do it, they struggle to actually become mature users of data. And they'll get started into data really quickly, don't get me wrong, but then how do you actually really well manage your data problems? It's hard. And a lot of people talk about the data silos, that data management difficulties that exist. So what do those data silos mean? Let's talk about that. So data silos are, there's different types of data that you have. There's always the big data and there's the relational data. those have never really sat well together before in the past, essentially because the tools that you use to manage big data or unrelational data are very different to the relational stuff, right? Relational stuff is your SQL databases that you're used to hearing about. Big data could be anything and everything. You just kind of dump it in one place and you hope you can do something with it. And that has been such an issue that that's essentially where Synapse came into play. What they've built Synapse to be is one place that can handle all of this. It's not a silo anymore. It's in one product that you should be able to manage all your big data and your relational stuff, merge it all together, be able to get insights from all of it in one place. So Synapse sounds really big and fancy, and that is a really, really busy slide. So give me a minute and we will go through it very slowly because there's so much happening on this slide. But let's take a step back. If you think about any data problem that you have, there's usually kind of the same steps that you go through, right? You find your data and you ingest it somewhere. And once you've gotten that data out of whatever system you've been using, you need to store it. And once you've stored that data, that's when you can start doing all your cleaning. You can transform that data. You can maybe even put machine learning into it. And you can train it, again, testing it. And once you've done that, those analytics and the insights that you've found, they need to be served somewhere. They need to be put into place and be able to deploy those models. And that's all great, right? This is where all of us people who love machine learning and AI and stuff, that's where we sit. We're like, yes, let's do all these machine learning models. Let's see what's the best result we can get. But the business doesn't care about that. They don't care that you've gotten all these really, really cool parameters and you've done all this featureization. They really don't. All they care about is what does that mean for them as a solution? And that's where your reports come in. You do all this work and then you actually have to represent it and communicate your results somehow. So what Synapse is doing is actually implementing one product, which actually deals from start all the way to the end in one place without ever having to leave that place. So when we talk about ingesting data, you can have data that's sitting on premise, you can have your data up in the cloud somewhere, and it doesn't matter if that's sitting in Amazon or GCP or any other cloud provider, that's completely fine. You can actually read it from anywhere else. And once you've ingested it, where does it go? And Synapse altogether sits on top of data lake storage, and everything just gets dumped into the one place. It can handle your big data and it can handle relational data sets in all in one area. Great, cool, you've stored your data. What do you do next? You're usually going to transform it. And how are you going to transform it? You can use Spark. That's usually going to be the compute that is used in Synapse. But also the fact that you can notice that there are 6 different languages that you can actually use to do all the coding and programming bits behind that. That's what's interesting, where, remember we talked about the flexibility. If I only know how to use Python, but someone else only knows how to use Scala, that's not an issue because Synapse can actually translate and talk across multiple different languages. And then you're serving your data. So once you've actually done those machine learning models and stuff, they need to be actually set back somewhere. So I've transformed my data. My data set now looks completely different. So I can sit that back into my data lake storage and actually use SQL and SQL runtimes to manage that all there behind the scenes. And once I've done all that, they've actually also connected up Power BI into the product, and I can build out my reports from within this product. So that's a very quick high-level outline of exactly what Synapse can do. And with that, let's just talk about Azure Machine Learning Studio that they've implemented into this. So there's a few different parts of Azure Machine Learning Studio that I'm going to end up mentioning throughout this talk. So just to get everyone onto the same page, if you've never heard of it before, it's completely fine. Azure Machine Learning Studio has 3 main parts. One of them is the notebooks and the SDK. And that's for people who use code first and they're machine learning experts, right? So your data scientists of the world, they know exactly how to set up their machine learning pipelines. They know exactly what they're going to code. So if I go in, I wanted to use Python, I know exactly what libraries I want and exactly what kind of an algorithm I want to input into my data. On the other hand of it, what if you don't have any machine learning background or any coding ability? So in Machine Learning Studio, there's AutoML, where essentially you just give it your data and it does all the machine learning for you. And I think it's like 3 buttons that you have to click on the studio and it just does everything else for you. And it's now actually generally available, I think, as of the next week. So yeah, if you've spare time, go check that out. That's a really, really cool product. And as well as that, they've also got Designer, which is a drag and drop UI to create your machine learning pipelines. So what we're going to focus on is the fact that they have notebooks and AutoML because they've implemented those in Synapse as well. But we'll talk about those when I do my demo. And Power BI. So if you've never used Power BI, this is a great time to go have a flick through it, maybe tomorrow after you've gone through the whole day and today at the conference. It's a great visualization tool, and they've got so much support and documentation about how you can actually use Power BI really, really well and to do anything with it. To be honest, it does everything. It's got its own machine learning models inside it too. So what they've built that into the product as well. So with that, I've talked a lot and I've said a lot of words. Let's just go straight into a demo where you can actually see what the product looks like and all these words and how do they relate to each other. So I was hoping this would have done it, but I think this has crossed itself out. Oh, yes. Okay, cool. Our favorite page on earth, honestly, at this rate, is the portal home. How do you set up a Synapse workspace at all? Currently, let me just put a disclaimer, it is under preview, and access to the preview, I think it's still a little bit limited. So you might not be able to go and test all this stuff out yourself, but you will be able to do the exact same techniques that I'm talking about in any other product and places available. But this is just meant to be a quick high-level view for you to see exactly what it looks like. So if you want to set up a workspace, click Add. It's telling me I only have $16 left. That's amazing. So as usual with any kind of Azure product, it's very straightforward. You put it under a resource group in your subscription, and all you need to have alongside your Synapse workspace is a Azure Data Lake storage to actually put against the product. That's where all your data will be stored. That's it. And you can, if you haven't already created them, you can create them new just from here. Literally type in whatever you want to call it, and you hit create from there. What that looks like, I'm just going to go back a page. If it will let me, is something like this. This is what it looks like once it's actually deployed the workspace. And all of this is just extra data that you don't really much care about. You care about this button here, which launches the studio. And what the studio will look like is this. So this is that one place product where you can go and you can see everything in one place. So let's take a little pause here. We've gotten this far and we're like, okay, amazing. What do we do next? If you think about any data solution, there's two main parts to it. First is obviously your data. Where are you going to get your data, or where's your data currently? And the other part is your compute. You've got data, but to be able to actually do anything with it, you need machine, and you need machine power to actually do anything to it at all. So let's talk about the machine power here. It's fairly straightforward to actually set it up. So you go into your setup toolbox, essentially, at the bottom of the left-hand screen. And in here, this will be where your SQL pools sit. And to create these, again, these are like, you literally just name it whatever you want, and you tell it how big or how small of a SQL pool you'd like. And yeah, minimum is about $1.65 per hour. I'm sorry, this is all in Australian dollars. I do not have any conversion numbers on the top of my head, but that's where your SQL pool sits, and these will be your Apache Spark pools. So this is where, if you're running any notebooks, this is what the actual machine power it'll use behind it. And you can, again, it's the exact same process. You name it, and you just tell it how big of a machine you want and how much of it you want. So once you've got your compute set up, I would recommend starting off with compute because it takes a little bit of time to actually get it going at times. So just get that going, put it aside. Once you've got that, the other thing you need, again, as we talked about, we need data. And once you have set up your Azure Synapse Analytics portal like we have, you'll remember at the start when we were setting it up in the portal, you needed to have a data lake store. And this you can see in here because it's linked to it. So anything you store in your Azure Data Lake storage will pop up here. And if I click this, it should open up to another thing for me. Sorry, internet, I think it's just hates me these days because it just keeps going slow for me. But here you can obviously import data directly. So I can actually upload from my laptop if I have a file that's locally, and that's what I have done for one data set. Or I can import it from any other place. And how do I do that? So if I wanted to import a Synapse SQL database, I can do that, or I can connect to an external data. And those are the three at the moment that's available in this preview. But I think if I go back here, they used to have more, and I can't see them at the moment. But yeah, the truth is it does still have that ability to connect to Amazon's and GCP and any other cloud provider that you can think of, Oracle, whatever you'd like. Because it's still under preview, it doesn't have all the features imported into it yet. So at the moment, it can only connect to, I think, Azure-owned data stores. So that's your data. Whatever data you'd like, you can find a bunch of different ones. There's a browse sample. So this is a really handy technique and a little tip for yourselves. If you're ever thinking about trying out something in Azure, especially to with machine learning, they've got sample data sets, and these are, oh my God, they're amazing because they're such big data sets and they're really, really detailed. So what I've done is I've essentially used the New York taxi data set. And all you do is you say continue, like just click it and you tell it how much you want, and you can add details around it. But this is like millions of different rows about taxi trips that they have stored for you and ready to go. And what this will do is it'll just connect to wherever Azure stores them, and you can just openly connect to those. So there's loads of them there for you to check out, practice your techniques and stuff with. Okay, cool. So I've got two data sets in front of me. I've got the New York taxis data set. That's how I imported that one. And I've got this, I think this is an Airbnb data set that we have. So if you look at the New York taxi data set and we click the three button beside it, there's a few things you can do directly. You can actually create a new SQL script from here. And you can say, yep, I want to select top 1,000 rows. If I do that, it'll open this up in a SQL script straight away, ready to go with the code written out in it. What if I wanted to see this in a notebook? Maybe I wanted to do it in Python, and it'll automatically do that. And here you can actually choose what language you want to be able to type this in and use this notebook in. So this is where the whole flexibility of the product comes back into play. Cool. So that's those two things. I'm going to X those for a second, and we will see all the different things you can do. So once you've got your data and we've got our compute set up, now we can go have fun with it and actually do some transformations. So what does that look like? Let's develop stuff. So this is what our script looked like. Let's run this. Please tell me that my SQL on demand is running. Okay, this is going to take a couple of seconds, so we'll come back to that one. There's a few other things we can do with this. There's a bunch of different ways you can actually develop. So you can use SQL. If you are comfortable using SQL, have fun. Go write your code, go write your select statements, whatever you want to do with it. Enjoy it. Also, this is the cool part of it. They've got IntelliSense built in. That's obviously you never do really select star, but they've got the fact that they have all of IntelliSense built in for almost all the languages. It's very fun and very cool to do. If you looked at notebooks, so if I look at a new notebook, just for a quick sample, I can add code or I can add text. And this is a really cool thing. I mean, I haven't seen any other product really do Markdown like this, other than maybe Visual Studio or anything like that. But this is so handy to actually, when I'm writing Markdown, I can see exactly what it will look like outside of it. I struggle with Markdown. I hate doing it so much. I have to keep like typing and testing exactly what it looks like. So this makes it a lot handier for me. And let's look at New York City Manual. So if you are a data scientist, this is a notebook that I created earlier on just to kind of give you an idea of what it can and can't do. I'm a data scientist. I know exactly what I want, and I want to be able to really tune my models and see exactly how it goes. So I've imported so many different libraries, and I've imported my New York City taxi data. And now I'm doing a bit of sampling. It's like, okay, let's split my data out into my test and my training data sets. I can do all of the stuff here, and I can do a bit of data exploration, and it'll pop out all these pretty graphs for me. I can see, all right, okay, I can see a histogram of what my usual tips are. I can see a box plot. Literally anything you can do in Python in your normal Jupyter environment, you can do that here as well. So go for it, make the most of it. Let me show you something interesting here. This is where it kind of gets cool, because now you can do SQL statements within a Python notebook by literally just saying, hey, this will be a SQL statement, and putting it into quotes, and off you go. You can write your own SQL in here, and it'll actually understand that and be able to do it. I've done a bit more data prepping here with featureization. What I'll do is, because we're running out of a little bit of time, I'll have these notebooks available on the GitHub and stuff that they have set up for you, so you can have a go have a look, see if you want to use those yourself. And once I've done that, I can do the splits and actually train the model. And this will take, God, you can tweak little bits here and there and make it really, really accurate. That takes time. But yeah, that's essentially what a workflow for a data scientist would look like. But what if you wanted to use AutoML? let's give a quick look at this. So what AutoML does is you can actually just import it as a library, which is azureml.core, which is, this one here. And once you've done that, you can actually create a machine learning workspace directly within your notebook, connect it up. And in this scenario, all you need to do is you need to read your data in, and then you need to prep it just to say, here, this is my testing set, this is my training set. Once you've done that, all you tell AutoML to do is like, okay, cool. I want to do this type of machine learning. So it could be regression, it can be time series, or it can be a classification. And once I've done that, that's kind of all I have to tell it. I don't have to do any more iterations and testing and stuff. It'll go do that for me. Once it runs like this. So this is kind of what you see while it's running. And it tests out, it's got so many different models in the background that it'll start testing against your data. And it'll keep a track of the metrics that you've told it to do. And it'll keep a track of what the best model was. And once it keeps going through them, at the end of it, it'll just give you the best model that you can then, so it'll give it to you in like a link that you can then go into Azure Machine Learning Studio directly from this and actually deploy that as a Kubernetes service, which will give you a REST endpoint. So this is minimal work for having a deployed model that you can actually call upon from another app that you've built if you'd like. So this is the AutoML end of it. This is what they've also implemented into Synapse from Azure Machine Learning Studio. So we've seen notebooks, we've seen AutoML capabilities within this. Let's talk about Power BI. Power BI is the cool bit here. So I've just put in let's look at a data set that I've pulled in. So if you've ever done a learn how to do Power BI, they've got a dashboard in a day scenario that you can use. And this is the data from that I've just pulled in, just so I can show you really quickly what Power BI within this looks like. So Power BI desktop is where you create all your reports. And this is exactly the same as it looks like within that. So if I wanted to create a visual, let's say, for the date, I want to see, let's say, what a manufacturer has maybe as a revenue. Yep, I want to see the revenue for every manufacturer against every year. I don't like the bar charts, I can make those line charts, and so on and so forth. And you can really fully build out a full report on this. And the data that you want to use, that can be the one that you've actually done your machine learning and transformation on, because you've written that back out into the same environment and pulled that out. Let's see, so this is just one that I've already created within the environment. And that was created using this, not necessarily Power BI desktop, it's the exact same usability and scenario environment as you'd be used to in the other product. So what this really means is that it goes from start all the way to the end of, yep, let me input all my data, do all my transformations, and actually be able to show the business what they want to see as a solution at the end of it. So this is a very quick look at the Synapse product. Let me just go back to the slides really quickly. Is this going to have an issue? Of course it is. So as a recap that we just went through, let me show you the full slide again. So we talked about the integration. So you can pull your data in from wherever. They are still working on implementing more and more things into this every day. It is still under preview for a lot of different parts. But the idea of what this can do and the scale of what this can be is quite amazing. Like, I'm amazed by this because I've done projects where you've got Jupyter and then you have to connect that to some data store that's up in Azure. And then you need to connect that to a deployment service so you can actually deploy your model and then connect it to a Tableau visualization service. And it's just switching between so many different things at the same time. It's, God, you don't even know what you're missing until you see this and you're like, oh my God, I can do all of this in one place. This is amazing. So yeah, that's a really small, quick look. I know I kind of flew through a lot of the details and stuff. I will put those notebooks up. I will give them to the organizers and they'll make sure that you can get your access to them. But on that, I'm going to say thank you for listening. And that's my Twitter at the bottom of the slide. I'll leave that up essentially because it's probably the best place to reach out if you do have any questions. I'll stay around and actually answer some now and in the chat as well. But yeah, LinkedIn tends to get really busy and I kind of don't enjoy LinkedIn as much. But yeah, Twitter, reach out. I'm more than happy to help. Any questions you have.